In a moment, I'm going to give you an English sentence that you have to translate into your language. If you're a native English speaker, then translate it into a language that you know or that you are learning. Are you ready? Here we go. You want to see the exhibition? You see those doors? Go in, down, through, across, around, up and out. I'll say it again. You want to see the exhibition? You see those doors? Go in, down, through, across, around, up and out. In this video, we're going to look at how similar and how different English is to other languages. We're going to delve deep into the English speaker's mindset. Are you ready for that? Hello and welcome to Let Them Talk TV. In the sentence I just gave you at the beginning of this video, in English, after the verb go, you don't have any more verbs. Depending on the language you're translating to, you could have as many as 7 verbs, 0 verbs or 7 verbs. That's an extraordinary difference. Let us know in the comments your language and how many verbs you used. Can you translate that sentence word for word from English into your language? Languages can roughly be divided up into 2 types, and these are verb frame languages and satellite framed languages. I'll show you what I mean in a moment with some examples, and I'll also show you how you can relate this concept to learning English to improve your English, especially the use of phrasal verbs. Some students of English find phrasal verbs particularly difficult because of the differences of how some languages are constructed, and I hope this video helps explain that. If you already know English, you can also apply this knowledge to another language, because understanding how verbs work is key to forming clear sentences. By the way, much of the information I use here I got from listening to linguist John McWhorter's podcast, Lexicon Valley, which is wonderful for anybody who has an interest in language and how it all works. I'll put a link to that in the description. And the concepts that he talked about were first put forward by the American linguist Leonard Talmy. I'll be trying to expand on some of these ideas and make them relevant to this audience. That's you, dear viewer. So firstly, there are verb frame languages. The Romance languages are verb frame languages: French, Spanish, Italian, Romanian, Portuguese, etc. Arabic, Hebrew, Korean, Tamil, Turkish, and others. These are verb frame languages. The information you need in a sentence is contained in the verb. I'm talking here mostly about verbs of motion. The other type of language are the satellite framed languages, such as English, Germanic languages, and Greek. In these type of languages, you have a sentence with a verb, but the motion described is not contained in the verb. In English, it's in some additional information in the form of a preposition or an adverbial phrase, not in the verb. I'll show you what I mean with a few sentences comparing English and French. I choose French, by the way, because I know some French. I live in France, but it should work with most verb-framed languages, and I'll give a few examples from other languages too. So let's start with the first sentence. He walked into the room. In French, il est entré dans la pièce. Notice that in French you don't normally say walk. Entrer means to enter, because normally when you enter a room you do so walking. The only reason you would say he walked into the room in French would be perhaps because he was in a wheelchair, but he got up out of the wheelchair, much to everybody's surprise, and he walked into the room. Il est entré dans la pièce en marchant. Vraiment incroyable. In English, we have the possibility of saying he entered the room, of course, because English has a big influence from French and Latin, and we can express sentences with the verb. But it's more common to say, I walked into the room than I entered the room. You could also say he went into the room, of course. But let's just stick for the moment, for the sake of simplicity, with walk. He walked into the room, okay? I walked into the room. The manner is in the verb. How did he enter the room? Well, he walked, okay? Walked is the manner. And the information about the motion, such as the direction, is not contained in the verb. It's contained in the satellite, the extra piece of information, such as the preposition or the adverb particle. Into, in this case, walk is the manner, into is the motion. Let's continue with some similar examples. I ran out of the room. In French, that would be Je suis sorti de la pièce en courant, which we would translate literally as I exited the room running. But of course, we don't say that in English. We put the manner in the verb. He ran out the room. So in English, the verb is kind of split up into two parts, the verb part and the manner, down, in, up, etc. In French, we have the motion part in the verb, entrer, sortir. Then we attach some additional information, if necessary, to show how it was done. How did he exit the room? Running. In English, the manner is in the verb, but the motion part is outside. In English, if you said left the room or he exited the room, that's okay. And the reason it's okay, because we understand from the concept that he walked out because that's the normal way. But he left the room running sounds strange, because in English, the manner is contained in the verb. So he ran out the room would be the way a native speaker would normally express it. If you're learning English from French or Italian or Turkish or Korean, you have to change your mindset to focus on the manner of the verb. Let's look at some more examples. And by the way, note to all translators out there, translation software such as Google and Siri made a terrible job translating between verb framed languages and satellite framed languages. Try putting the sentence I started the video with into Google Translate. What a shambles. Translators, human translators, your jobs are safe, at least for the moment. Let's look at a couple more examples, okay? He stormed out the room. How do you say that in your language? Storm, by the way, means in an angry way. In French, it's il est sorti de la pièce en colère. He exited the room angrily. He shuffled out the room. How do you translate into your language? Shuffle, by the way, means sweeping your feet on the ground. In French, it's il est sorti en traînant les pieds. He exited the room with his legs dragging. Don't assume that because a language is unrelated to English, if it's not an Indo-European language and comes from a different branch of the tree, it can't share, by coincidence or otherwise, some traits, such as being a satellite language. My student Zhao tells me that in Vietnamese, you can indeed translate the sentence I started the video with the same structure as English. However, Germanic languages are also satellite languages, and this could be one of the reasons why speakers of these tongues find it easier to master ours. Of course, the verb frame languages and the satellite frame languages are just broad categories. It depends on the language, and some may display elements of both. English is a satellite language, but if you want to sound more formal or add a flourish to your sentence, you may opt for a verb of motion. For example, take care when descending the stairs instead of when going down the stairs. You may write that on a sign or say it when you want to speak formally. I wanted to get the teacher's attention, so I raised my arm instead of I put up my arm, okay? Just to sound more formal. We traversed the forest looking for mushrooms. In everyday English, you'd say we walked through the forest looking for mushrooms. Mushrooms. Traversed is more literary and might sound right in the context. Now, this explains why we use so many phrasal verbs in English. The default English mindset is manner and satellite rather than using a motion verb. but we can do both. Let's look at one more example. I'm flying to Taipei tomorrow. How do you say that in your language or the language that you're learning? In Italian, let's do Italian this time. It's a verb frame language, so you probably say domani vado a Taipei. Hope I said that okay. Tomorrow I go to Taipei. In German, morgen fliege ich nach Taipei. In German, you'll probably use fliege to fly because it's a satellite language. You see, now what you're probably thinking is, now I know the difference between a verb frame language and a satellite frame language. I can translate much better into any language than a few minutes ago. And that's true. It's a kind of polyglot trick. If you know the type of language you're learning, it gives you a kind of a head start. Let's return to French. It's a verb language. You know it's a verb language, so you'll use a motion verb. Demain, je vais à Taipei. Tomorrow, I fly to Taipei, or I'm flying to Taipei. You know that the only way to get to Taipei for most people, unless you're in Taiwan or nearby, is by flying. So there's no need to say, je vais à Taipei en avion. I'm going to Taipei by plane. By plane is redundant information. Incidentally, in French, you have the verb voler, to fly, but you wouldn't say je vole à Taipei. It would imply that you're flying around Taipei in a hot air balloon. Now, in some languages, you can use both. In English, I'm flying to Taipei tomorrow, or I'm going to Taipei tomorrow, without much difference in meaning most of the time. How can we use these rules to improve our English? It should help, first of all, with phrasal verbs, as I mentioned earlier. When formulating a sentence with motion, first of all, find yourself a verb of manner and then a preposition to express the direction to form the phrasal verb. Okay, let's try this out. I danced up the stairs. I use dance for the manner and up for the direction. That's easy enough. Let's move on to more interesting verbs. Let's use the verb amble. How did I amble? Just around. Just around. So in a sentence, I ambled around the market for hours trying to find some strawberries. A verb of manner. Meander. I like that. Meander. How do you meander? Down. He meandered down the river on his rowing boat. You see, phrasal verbs are getting easier. But it doesn't end there. It gets more exciting. What if, instead of direction, using direction literally, you expressed it metaphorically? That could really be interesting. Give your English a little panache. And the beauty of this is that you can invent your own phrasal verbs. Yes, I'll show you that in a second. Go for it. I had a headache, but I went to the beach and walked it off. Okay. When you use off in a phrasal verb, it can sometimes have the idea of remove or terminate. Walked off means that walking along the beach had the positive effect of you recovering from the headache. The manner is walk and a preposition off to express what happened. Okay. You could also say I ran off my headache. Okay. Or I sauntered off my headache. I didn't exactly walk it off. I kind of just sauntered off my headache. So I just invented a new phrasal verb, to saunter off. You won't find that in any dictionaries. If you can get into this way of thinking, your English will be trudging along nicely. Even non-motion phrasal verbs still have the idea of a main verb and a manner, okay, the way you do it. They can be used literally or figuratively. I thought of some new ideas. Correct, but for ideas, newness, use the preposition up. I thought up some new ideas, okay? I thought up some new ideas for the website, or I dreamed up, or I conjured up, okay? Needless to say, there are many, many more examples. And by the way, do check out our video 101 must know phrasal verbs up here. And in the next video, we're going to continue this theme on the instincts of the English speaker's mindset. Apologies, by the way, if I botched up my attempt to speak one of your languages. You can put your angry comments down below, and thank you anyway. Take care, stay healthy. Bye.